Thanks, sir. The film confirmed what I felt Saturday, probably when I met with you all, that, it was a tough, hard-fought victory over a really good, fundamentally sound football team. We didn't execute on certain plays that on both in both phases. We didn't execute as well as we all aspire to, but we executed well enough to get the outcome that we wanted. We gotta clean up some of the penalties. That's something that sticks out. Way too many penalties for the team we aspire to be. And I'm not talking about aggressive penalties. I always say there's a difference between aggressive penalties and undisciplined penalties. The undisciplined ones have really been the ones we've been able to prevent the first couple games of the year. But like false starts and offsides and late hit out of bounds, those are selfish penalties, undisciplined penalties that we can't have. And we got to make sure we clean those up with urgency and get back to work and find a way to improve for NC State. 4-2 team that, I think this is Coach Doran's 13th year, and he's been as successful as anyone during that tenure, that span. I think he's the 5th longest tenured coach in FBS right now. And so he's done a heck of a job. Their offense is very efficient, many weapons. I think their running back, Smothers, number 3, is as good as anyone will see all year. He is a really talented football player, and you better tackle him because if he gets an open space, he can take it all the way. And the quarterback, number 11, Bailey, he's a really good player. Another tall, athletic. Really distributes the ball to many people. I know the tight end, number 7, has gotten the most passes, and he's a problem too. And so we have to have a good defensive plan for what they're going to present. But it'll be another great challenge. Before I really get in their defense, I know their defensive coordinator, DJ Elliott, is expected to be back this week. And following the loss of his daughter Drew, and I think it's important that hopefully he knows and his family knows that they're in the prayers and thoughts of everybody, but especially mine. And so the defense has been dealing with a whole bunch of injuries, as you've seen from week 1 to where they're at. And I know that's probably slowed down a little bit of the progress coming with a new coordinator. But last week they played really well. And I don't care who the opponent is. Like they played well last week, and so their D-line's big. They're gonna bring pressure. They got the pressure from the edges, and we're gonna have the great plan offensively too. So, looking forward to the challenge, and we'll open up for questions.
Starting on the front right, John Bryce.
Hey, Marcus, it's every year of your coaching tenure here, you guys have scored a special teams touchdown, punt block, return, or whatever. You've already done it again this year. If Rendell qualified, I think you'd be around 25th in punting. Punt efficiency is way up there. So I think you guys call it creating chaos. But you've got a bunch of new guys helping create that chaos this year. How do you maintain that consistency in special teams year over year? Maybe what does it speak to the buy-in in your program top down when it's like that?
Yeah, I think it starts with the buy-in. And as the head coach, I know how important it is to me, and I make sure to be in every special teams meeting. They know the importance, but Coach Biaggi has done an unbelievable job since the time he's been here, and he's been consistently, creating chaotic plays, creating explosive plays for our team, and that's something that I know is often overlooked, but not in our building. Like the work he puts in, his staff, and then the buy-in from our players to aspire to be on special teams. Like it used to be, you had to mandate every starter's got to be on a special teams. Now you got guys that are begging to be on special. They want to be a part of that special teams group, and that's a reflection of the culture of our program, but what Coach Biaggi has built here.
And then when you get to this point in the season, 4 or 5 games in, I know Eric asked you last Thursday about redshirting, but how do you handle those conversations with redshirts or potential guys redshirting, especially in this era of NIL, when maybe an extra year in college can mean an extra year of making a pretty good living? And then do you have any thoughts on the 5 for 5 discussion?
Yeah, we if you're a freshman, we think it's important to we got to do what's best for the young person, right? And that we don't want to waste a year for a couple plays, especially if you're a freshman. But we also have a stance that, listen, if you're not a freshman, right, and you have a role on this team, we need you to do your role for this team to achieve team glory. Nobody's ever satisfied, I'm sure, with their role. I don't want anybody satisfied with their role. But on Saturdays, you have to embrace it, because if you allowed everybody that wasn't satisfied with their role to redshirt and only play 4 games, and I'm not talking to freshmen, you won't have a team. You won't have a team. And so we create this culture of your role doesn't determine your value, right? Your role is so important for us to achieving the outcome that we want, and we need you to get that role done. We're not asking you to be satisfied with it Monday through Friday, but on Saturdays, that's all that matters. And so that's just been my stance since this whole thing started happening, and it hasn't been an issue. And, if, to each their own. If a guy decides he doesn't want to play, he doesn't want to play. But that's just been the stance in our football program.
I went to 5 for 5 years to play 5, as we discussed.
Yeah. You won't – I don't know if you would really approach it any differently, right? Like, you just don't want to waste somebody's year knowing that you only got 5 for 5, right? Let's make sure we're intentional about what we're asking this guy to do, and if it's best for him and best for the program to redshirt, then we redshirt.
Mm-hmm. Second row on the left, Tyler James.
Marcus, Cooper Flanagan's working his way back. What have you seen from him, and what are the expectations for him, and how important will he be when he gets back?
Yeah, he's getting closer. He started to get a little bit of reps last week in practice. We'll see. We're going to try to add a couple more reps to him in practice to try to work up that capacity of how much he can do in the game. And again, it's the value, right? Like, we need to make sure that when he's back and ready to roll, we can get the most value out of Cooper Flanagan. He would be a huge addition when he's ready, and I don't know if it'll be this week, next week, but he's getting closer. And right now it's just not the injury anymore as much as the capacity to, give us what we need on the football field. But he's an impact player. And so when we're able to get him back, you'll see him out there on the field for sure.
And you guys got stopped on the 4th and goal on the 1-yard line this past weekend. Where are you at in terms of identifying answers in short yardage situations, and maybe what hasn't gone right with that so far?
Yeah, that was just an inside joke, but I knew you were going to ask me that. And so, that play, that particular play, was a reflection of really, as an offense, and this is something I've learned in my 4 years. Mostly, defense side of the ball, it's all reaction to what you see. On offense, you have to anticipate what you think somebody's going to do. All right? We have to anticipate, okay, what we've seen on film, what we're going to show, this is what we anticipate the defense to do. And they didn't really do what we exactly thought they were going to do. It's not that we never seen that look. They didn't do exactly what we thought they were going to do with the play action we did with that play. And so as you look at it now, looking back at it, you said, let's try to keep it inside. But as we prepared for that, we thought it was going to hit right there in that C-D gap, and there was a lot of people in that C and D gap that we didn't expect to be there. And so, they got us. We got to come back and have a better plan that ensures that we do. Like, it's not okay. I'm not justifying that. That's just what happened. We got to ensure that we have a plan that no matter what they do defensively, that we can score in that situation, and I'm confident we will.
Third row on the right, Tim Priester.
Coach, I was wondering where you've seen the most growth with your offensive line. I'm sure, being together for a while, that helps. But individually or collectively, it helps to have some really good running backs behind them, obviously. But you start out against a really good defense in Miami. But what are some of the nuts and bolts of the offensive line play that you've seen improve?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest thing I've seen is when you have that consistency and you have the experience at 4 of those positions that you've had, and Gerby's now becoming a more experienced guy, the adjustments they have been able to make to things they didn't see on film has been tremendous. And we're getting it every week. Like Boise State did some things that we had just not seen, and the ability to get to the sideline and say, okay, let's block it this way in the run game, let's protect it this way in the pass game, has really, really been good. And they did a great job of adjusting to some of those exotic pressures that Boise State did. But that's probably the biggest thing, is the ability to handle different looks and still get bodies on bodies and create some open lanes for our running backs.
And the kicker situation last year with Jeter and Burnett this year, I know when we talked to Coach Biaggi, he thought that maybe Burnett had too much activity kicking when he was at UNC, and now he's having a problem again. Can you give us an idea what the dialogue has been between you and Rob Hunt and Lauren Lando, et cetera?
Yeah, it is a constant conversation on cause and effect, right? Like what happened and how it happened, and the return to play, and okay, he feels healthy, and then all of a sudden, we get a muscle strain. And with Noah, it wasn't the same injury. With Devontae, it's the same injury. He calf strain, and he reaggravated his calf strain. With Noah, it was a different injury. And so we got to keep figuring this thing out, right? And nobody's ever going to be okay with soft tissue issues, saying we're unlucky. It's cause and effect. And so it's being able to communicate with Noah, and maybe it's a kid saying, I feel good. Okay, let's go kick you. And all of a sudden, maybe you felt good, but, it wasn't good enough, right? That now he was sore or in too much pain to kick on Saturday. So we got to find the right formula. He's in a really good spot right now, but he was in a really good spot a couple weeks ago, and then got injured again. So we got to kick him. We have to. You can't go weeks without kicking and expect to make it in the game. Like anything, you got to practice. But is it practice? Is it treatment? Is it some type of fueling thing with his muscles? We have to get this thing figured out, and we are all, from the kid to us to sports medicine to nutrition, we're all trying to figure out, hey, what is the right formula to make sure he's available for Saturday, but also he's prepared to do what he's asked to do.
Front row on the left, Tyler Horka.
Marcus, you called some of the penalties selfish. Is that a game flow thing? Is it just a reaction to the opponent? Can you tell when some of that stuff is coming, and how do you coach against it?
I shouldn't say selfish. Undisciplined is the word I like to use. There's aggressive penalties and undisciplined penalties. Undisciplined penalties are lack of focus. I don't think it's the flow of the game. It's just a lack of focus in that moment. And if you false start, I'm not locked in. If I jump off sides, I am not focused on what I'm supposed to be focused on that play, right? And that's one of the great challenges. And Tay-Tay's got to know better where he's at on the field, and we got to make better decisions in that situation there. Some of the aggressive penalties, you grab a guy's jersey. Like, we don't want you to grab a guy's jersey, but that's part of the game sometimes. You get your little tug, and they caught Luke, and I can go through a couple of different ones, but aggressive penalties, I'm okay. It's just the lack of discipline penalties we got to clean up.
Average third down distance to go was 11.1 yards, 1 for 5 when it was longer than 9 yards for your offense. When you rewatched the game, was that a penalty-driven thing, or what can you do to get better there?
I think every drive that we had, except for the one that we went for it on 4th and 8, we tried to throw it to Will Pauling, and it was at the north end, and it was incomplete. Every drive but that one that we didn't score, there was penalties, right? Or negative yardage plays, but penalties. Every drive that we didn't have one penalty, we scored a touchdown. That's not the only reason, but that's a huge reason, guys. We can't put ourselves behind the sticks because of a negative yardage play or a penalty, right? And if that's called beating Notre Dame, right? If we don't beat Notre Dame, we're going to be hard to beat, but we can't put ourselves behind the sticks because of penalties.
Front row on the right, Eric Hansen.
Hey, Coach, following up on Tim Priester's kicking question, I wondered how you evaluate how you simulate pressure for the guys that are competing in case Burnett can't go?
Yeah. I had a long conversation with Coach Biaggi on Sunday. We've been in a kicking battle between Eric and Marcello for a couple weeks, just trying to prepare in case Noah couldn't go. And I think it's time at some point this week, we just got to, hey, if Noah can't go, this is going to be the guy, because I as the head coach got to have confidence in that person. Our team has to have confidence, and that young person has to have confidence. And I told him it's kind of similar to the quarterback competition. There's two guys that are really, really good, and they've both been really good and both missed them in practice. You're not going to the stats probably ain't going to give you an answer. You're going to have to make a decision, and we'll make one this week in the case that Noah can't go. But I think it's time to now. The competition, it's not helping us the way that I would like it to, so we need to now make a decision and just say, hey, you're going to be the guy if Noah can't go, and let's get ready.
The follow-up question is about linebackers. I've seen a lot of linebackers here, and the group you have is as athletic as I can remember. And yet it seemed like that group was slower out of the gate with the new scheme and everything. It seems like KVA, Paramo, they caught on, and now Bowen and Snead are starting to get into it. What's going right for them now? What's kind of the next step for those two?
I think it's an accumulation of a couple of things. The answer will probably be similar if you ask me about the defense. It's the ability. We know those guys have an unbelievable talent. I'm talking all five of those guys that you would mention. Their talent level is extremely high. How do we get them to play that way consistently, right? And is it the clarity in what we're asking them to do? Is it them understanding what is being asked of them and then going out and do it on Saturday? I think it's just all those things and the experience that we have in a new system that's now allowing those guys to play with much more velocity and use that athleticism that we have. They're, Coach Bulla pours so much into those guys. I mean, the thing I really appreciate about that room, and I'll say that about multiple rooms, is the unselfishness. There's four of those five. Matt is young. I won't let Madden be the fifth guy, but four of those guys that could argue to never come off the field. But we got to split time, and we got to roll guys. We have different roles for each of those guys, but they all played at a pretty high level on Saturday.
In the back, Talia Baya.
Hey, Coach. So you're a few games in with Chris Ash. Where do you think has improved the most on defense, and what still needs some work?
There's a lot of things that we're greedy people. Like, I think I said it after the game, your standard's perfection, and it has to be that. It's never going to be that. But you can't be okay with that, right? Like, if you're not okay with it, now you have the capacity, understanding that let's find the answers to get closer to that. But, I know who created this. I think the best thing for me in these 5 weeks was being with Coach Ash through good times, but now for a while was tough times, and saying, all right, I think I know the type of competitor and person he is and leader he is, but let's see. And I wasn't surprised one bit. And the ability for him to stay steady as the leader, to rally the troops, to make decisions defensive personnel-wise, schematically, to help us play with more velocity. That's what I've been most impressed with, and they'll continue to get better.
And like we've been talking about, penalties definitely slowed the game down a little bit. And when you talk about cleaning those up, how do you plan on balancing letting the guys play free but also holding them accountable? Yeah,
it's very similar, I think, to what I was just said earlier with Tyler. Just there's undisciplined penalties and there's aggressive penalties. Aggressive penalties are a part of the game. You always try to clean up some of the aggressive penalties with technique, right, and playing with proper technique. The undisciplined penalties are ones that have to be expedited with urgency. And those are, how do you go on 2 on scout team, right? You go on 3, you clap 3 times. There's intentional ways to improve those things, right? If you're an offensive lineman, the scout defense should stem, because that's what they're going to do in the game. And so you got to practice those things. And then, Tay-Tay's one is just awareness. Tay-Tay, you got to be aware of where you're at on the field, right? And that wasn't intentional, but you got to be aware we can't have that. And so that's how you attack those undisciplined penalties with urgency.
Third row on the left, Pete Byrne.
Marcus, how is Leonard Moore feeling now that he's about 2 hours removed from playing? And can you quantify just how important he is to what you guys try and do?
2 days. 2 days. 2 hours. Yeah. Listen, he is, there's so much that he brings to our team. It's obvious he's a great football player. He is a gifted football player. But there's a leadership aspect that he brings in his own way. Right? There's a confidence that I think he brings that defensive back crew when he's on the field. And there's a confidence he brings, I'm sure, the coordinator, knowing that Leonard's on the field at times, just knowing that, hey, you can trust and you can count on, hey, he's going to take care of the boundary, right? You can play different coverages, but if you need to play man, you got a lot of faith in, hey, Leonard, take care of it and play man. And I'm not saying we can't do it to other guys, but there's a confidence that if you're going to throw it to a guy, Leonard is covering man-to-man, there's a chance that he might intercept that ball, or that guy, that's not going to be a completion. And so it's just great to have him back. Personality, as a person, what he brings to the team, but also as a player.
Over the course of a season, do you believe in momentum, and do you feel like your team is starting to get some of that now? Yeah.
I think as you look back at something, you believe in momentum. You say, man, we gained some momentum. I believe there's a confidence that helps with momentum, that success brings you. But I don't believe you can rely on momentum to achieve an outcome that you want. I believe you achieve the outcome, the desired outcome, by the work you put in every single day. And there's a little bit of fear, if we don't put in the work, we're not going to get the result that we desire. And so we can't rely on momentum, but I think as you look back, momentum is a real thing.
Staying on the left side, Jack Sobel.
Coach, this was, I think, your best week in terms of pass rush, both sacks and pressures. I know there's no magic formula, but what did you feel like the front did better this week after you watched the film?
I think for the majority of the game, we, especially in the 4-man rushes, did a better job of executing our rush lanes. You didn't see a lot of times where, our inside guys were behind the quarterback and he had a vertical a gap to escape. And, and then when we brought some of the 5-6-man pressures, they got home, right? And I thought Coach Ash did a good job of mixing up what coverages we were playing when we brought those pressures. It's easy to, they're bringing pressure play, man. All of a sudden, if you're playing a little zone, that quarterback has to hold it. And if he has to hold it, now the pressure has to get there. And that's what I mean when I talk about the front and the coverage have to work together. And if we're bringing pressure, how long are you asking these guys to cover? And if you're not bringing pressure, we got to stay in our lanes as we attack the quarterback.
And then kind of following up on Eric's question about the linebackers, you mentioned you got 4 guys who on a lot of teams wouldn't come off the field. Kingston came off the field a lot less this week than he has in the past. Where did that come from, and kind of how have you kind of figured out different ways to use Kingston?
Well, I think it started off, they played with a little bit more 12 personnel than we've seen all year. And so you had 3 linebackers on the field more than you have in the first 4 games. And so Kingston was the third guy. He wasn't going to come off the field. And then when we play with 2 linebackers, we have our normal rotation. And then you talk about the versatility of Kingston and Snead in third down situations being pass rushers. So it was intentional, but also because of what the offense was doing, it gave us more opportunities to keep linebackers on the field, especially Kingston.
On the right side, Tim O'Malley.
Coach, with Devonta Smith out, I'm curious what Carson Hobbs' reaction was, or how he handled, for lack of a better word, being benched after playing so often. Now I see him back. Obviously, he's next man in at nickel after Dallas Golden. What conversations did you and Coach Mickens have with him to kind of get him back involved?
Well, I think it's never easy to have something you want taken away from you. And there's 2 options. You can blame your coaches, you can blame somebody else, or you can say, okay, I'm not getting what I want. What do I got to do to get more. And that's what Carson Hobbs has done. He's worked his tail off. And at some point, it's going to be another example of delayed gratification. If you don't understand and value delayed gratification, you won't get another opportunity, right? And so I know Carson is a competitor. I know that he wants more, and he'll continue to work in a way that will earn him the opportunity to get more. And so Carson's reflection of everybody on our team, right, is that everybody wants more, right? Everybody, and I don't want anybody in our program to be okay with having less, but you got to just work while you wait, right? Let's say patience plus strategy, like working while you wait is delayed gratification. If you just wait, you ain't ever going to get an opportunity. And so that's what Carson's doing. He's a great teammate. He's hungry, but he still understands I put my team in front of myself, and I'm going to be the best teammate that I can be, and I'm going to be as prepared as I can be.
This kind of circles back to the short yardage with Wildcat, whatever you want to call it. Just other defensive coordinators, not offensive coordinators, have kind of mentioned the presence of the quarterback on the field is important. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it is more of a sellout, even if you have extra blockers for Love or Price or whoever gets it. Is part of the evolution of yours figuring out how teams are reacting to C.J. Carr, where he is on that field? And do you kind of agree you need to have a quarterback on the field in that situation?
Yeah. I guess you don't have to have a quarterback, but I think from my defensive point of view, if you don't have a quarterback on the field, we're going to do something completely different, because you don't know what formation offense is going to give. You see personnel, but then you got to react and adjust to the formation. And so I think it's important to have a quarterback on the field. But, yeah, it's a growing package, right? We had some success with it. We didn't have success on that 4th and 1 situation on the goal line. How do we keep growing it? At some point, if we got to throw the ball to C.J. Carr as a wideout, maybe we have to do that to get somebody to respect him. And but, yes, it's an evolution. And, again, it's not just try things out. It's like, do we believe this package can give us a chance in a short yardage situation or a non-short yardage situation to have success? If we do, let's find ways to continue to enhance it, and that's what we're trying to do.
Last question opportunity, Mike Berardino.
Hey, Marcus. Tackling was such an issue the first game especially, and it seemed like since then you've really become more sound there. How have you been able to use the practice time to firm up the fundamentals, understanding that you can't do a whole lot of physical stuff?
I mean, you get what you emphasize, and there's ways to emphasize tackling in practice and individual periods. Like, we kind of talked about this a couple weeks ago when it was like, okay, you guys need to work on zone defense. Well, how do you do that knowing that the time you're on the practice field isn't really going to change? Well, you got to make a decision on what you're going to emphasize during this time you're on the practice field. If it's zone coverage, then we better do some pattern match periods. If it's tackling, then we better take a couple minutes and really emphasize tackling. You got to be creative. You can't just live tackle, but you can be creative in terms of tackling drills. But it's the way you emphasize those things in practice that I think helps you improve for Saturdays.
And then here's a quarterback coming in 6'6", like you said. You just come off a guy who's 5'10" and slippery. That's unusual week to week kind of thing. I mean, the dimensions, the stature of a quarterback, the bigger ones. What are the particular challenges in general of the guys who can see over everything, and how does that kind of change the target point for your? Obvious. It seems pretty obvious how they would change the target point for your pass rushers. Challenges of that switch from week to week. Little guy, huge guy.
Yeah. I don't think that when you're talking about attacking a quarterback that you overly emphasize the height. Now, you look at Kingston's roughing the passer penalty, right? He was really going for the ball and hand hit the head. I don't think you got to worry about that this week because you got a 6'6" guy. You know what I mean? And so, hey, go after that ball. If you don't get the ball, you probably hit the shoulder, not the head. And so that might be a positive. I think when you have shorter quarterbacks, you overly emphasize getting your hand up in throwing lanes to try to make sure he can't have a clear picture. A guy that's tall, I don't know how much that's going to affect him. But he's a different quarterback. I don't know. I'm not going to say he's a true like dual threat. He's a quarterback. He wants to throw it. He wants to distribute it. He wants to pass that thing. But he has the ability to keep it in some zone read situations or take off if he needs to. So you have to respect that. There's some quarterbacks you say, all right, keep it if you want. You can't do that with this guy. And so that's, to me, the challenges this week. We got to be good in our coverages. We got to make sure we try to make him uncomfortable in the pocket. And when we get a chance to get him, we got to get him down.
Coach Freeman, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Have a good week.